Welcome to this live feed. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm doing something a little bit different today, and I've got a couple of videos going. So I'm going live on Instagram at the same time as I am on Facebook as well. So something a little bit different, just mixing it up a little bit. So this is pretty cool what we're speaking to this evening, yeah. And we are speaking to power plays in relationships, and how power plays in relationships are really deeply damaging for our own mental, emotional, spiritual health, but also the health of the relationship and our own growth, yeah. So as you're coming on, please let me know that you're coming on. Place a number 1 in the comment box so that I know that you're here. I cannot see everybody that is coming on, so it'd be wonderful to let me know and let everybody else know that you're here. That'd be great. So welcome yourself to the community. If you're new to the community, if you're new to these live feeds, please place new in the comment box as well, so the tribe can welcome you with open arms, I'm sure. So really interesting, yeah. Really interesting is power plays in relationships, and we all, to some degree, do this, either consciously or unconsciously, and there is deep complexity to this. So we're going to go as deep as we possibly can in a video such as this, of course, but also to know that there is so much to gaining power in a relationship. Now, there's various ways to gain power in a relationship, and if we break it down, if we streamline it and make it really simple, we look at there's an authentic power that we can express in relationships, and I'll of course go into the great depth and detail with respect to what that actually is. And in addition to that authentic, the other way to gain power in a relationship or to be powerful in a relationship is by expressing autocracy in the relationship, expressing control in the relationships, in your relationship, in the relationships that you engage in, is expressing a harshness, a harsh tonality in the relationship, a self-absorbed, selfish manner. So we express power for reasons that are related to being self-absorbed, for self-interest purely. So there's no approach of selfish selflessness in this instance. And selfish selflessness, if you are here and you've been on these live feeds for quite some time, you of course would be, I would think, hey babe, what's happening? You would be very familiar with the term selfish selflessness, where we choose to move through the world in two ways, and they're in parallel, in tangent. And the first way, of course, is to be selfish, but in a healthy way, to look after our own interests, to choose to very openly involve our own growth, to evolve our own journey, our path, how we choose to move through the world. This becomes very important. So we move through the world, we take action, we think, we feel, we behave, we interact to serve us, to serve our own growth, our own expansion, mental expansion, cognitive expansion, spiritual, emotional expansion, relational expansion. We're really present to ourselves. And then we combine that and we couple that simultaneously in a beautiful manner with being selfless. So when we take our actions, we are considerate of who we are considerate of what we feel, and we are considerate how do our actions influence or impact others. But not only influence or impact others, beyond that, beyond just influencing and impacting others, we want to ensure that those choices that we're making in terms of the actions that we're taking in life means that we are also asking ourselves, how do my actions evolve the journey of another? Now, of course, this is somewhat limited. It's somewhat finite. We cannot be all things to all people, and we know that. And place a number 2 in the comment box if you can resonate with that, because that's a very important point. We cannot be all things to all people. It's virtually impossible. Now, I use the analogy of Jesus Christ, and it's irrelevant. It's not too relevant whether you are a religious person, you believe in Jesus, or you don't, or you believe in religiosity, or you believe in Catholicism or Christianity. That's not too relevant. What is relevant is that parts of the story that we begin to hear from the journey of Jesus Christ was that you look at his ethos, you look at agapistic ethics, which are a love-based ethics. And when you look at that, and you look at the New Testament, for example, and you look at what is written in the New Testament, the majority of it, the essence of it, the ethos of it, yeah, with respect to what it's about love, it's about engagement, it's about connection. But Jesus was still crucified on the cross, right? He was still disliked by certain people. So we cannot be all things to all people. And these stories are scattered and littered throughout history, and they're prevalent in our world today, yeah, on a socio-economic, socio-cultural level, and many other levels as well. So we begin to understand that we cannot be all things to all people. We have to understand that. So when we're moving in a space of selflessness, we are simply being as considerate as possible. We are simply being as connected as possible to ourselves and to the path of others. And that's all we can really do. Okay, so it's really a practice of empathy and compassion. When we practice empathy and compassion, when we're exuding power, we're exuding an authentic power. It's coming from a very different place. The intention is very different. So we have to understand that it comes down massively to our intention. So power plays in relationships. Here's the interesting thing. We bring our shit, we bring our stuff, our baggage, our emotional baggage to relationships. We do not leave our baggage at the door when we enter a new relationship. We think we do. We think we leave our baggage at the door consciously, right? We think and consciously we do. We leave some of that baggage. We say to ourselves, hey, I've learned in the last relationship, this is what happened. If we even get to this point, many of us, let's be really real here, people. Many of us do not look at ourselves. We have a very low level of self-awareness. We aren't engaged in really wishing to learn and wanting to grow profoundly from our experiences, because often they're too painful. That's the reality of it. Often our experiences are too painful to even look at, to observe, to get into, to move through. It becomes deeply challenging and confronting to look at our past, or to look at how we've behaved, or how we've been treated, or how we have treated others. It becomes extremely challenging and painful to be looking at that. So whilst some people may leave some of their conscious emotional baggage at the door when entering a new relationship, or when just communicating and dealing with one's own self, there is so much unconscious baggage that is unchecked, misunderstood, or it can't be even understood because it's not known. There is so much that is not known. There is so much that is not known about our coping strategy, our emotional coping strategies. And so many of these coping strategies, the way we choose to move through life, are known as, or can be known as, maladaptive coping strategies, where they're very unhealthy and deeply unhealthy for relating in a conscious, open, aware, healthy manner that benefits ourselves and benefits others. So we're treading dangerous ground. We're treading dangerous ground when we are moving from a relationship to a relationship, even platonic relationships with our families. There is so much harbored unconscious pain that we really lose connection with ourselves. We really lose that ability to know ourselves, to be present to who we are. And this becomes a dangerous game we play in relationships. So when we're talking to power plays in relationships, and you can look at statistics. All we need to do is look at statistics across Europe, New Zealand, Australia, US, and we can average those statistics with respect to divorce rates. Now, I'm not saying divorce rates occur, or high level of divorce rates occur because we don't check our emotional baggage at the door. We struggle in fighting for power in relationship, but that's a part of it. But largely because we are so unaware of self. And this really links into what type of power we wish to express in relationship. So the majority of people in relationship wish to express an autocratic power, a controlling power, a power that comes from a place of fear, a power that comes from a place of not being deeply connected to self. Place number 3 in the comment box if you can resonate with that. And if you're just coming on, please place number 1 in the comment box. And if you're new to these live feeds, place new in the comment box so that we know that you're here in the beautiful tribe and the community can welcome you. Of course, we'd be very grateful to have you here. We are very grateful to have you here. So how do we begin to create harmony in our relationships? Now, we all want to express and feel power in life. And there's reasons for that. And it's natural to feel power. Again, we need to identify what type of power it is that we are searching for in life. What type of power are we looking for? What type of power are we wishing to connect to? What are the reasons for the power that we are expressing in life? What are the reasons? What is the intention behind the power that we're wishing to express in relationship? Feel into this for a moment. Think about this just for a moment. Like really be with this. And I ask you to really be with this, and this is deeply and beautifully and profoundly important, because the type of power you wish to express, in other words, the space that power comes from, is going to determine the type of relationship that you have to self and the type of relationship you have with your intimate partners and your loved ones. Let's just sit with this for a moment. Let's be in a little bit of stillness with this for a moment. And again, the reason why I ask you and I wish for you to be in stillness with this is because I want you to feel deeply, what does it mean to be in power? And importantly, what does it mean to be out of power? So I'm asking you this question really openly now. What does it mean for you to be out of power? What does it mean for you to not be able to express your authentic truth? And whilst you're feeling into that, and whilst you are hopefully typing on the computer or on your phone, whilst you're responding to what does it mean to be out of power, how do you feel when you are out of power? Give me 2 to 4 emotions with respect to how you feel when you are out of power, because that will indicate a great deal to me, and it will indicate a great deal to you. It will give you tremendous insight into how you react under pressure, when you're facing challenge, when you're in pain, when you're in disharmony. Just let me know, how do you feel? 2 to 4 feelings with respect to when you're not in power. And whilst you're doing that, whilst you're expressing that and you're sharing, and I honor that sharing, by the way, and I'm sure the community does as well, I'm going to define power for you per se, okay? I'm going to define what it means to be in power. And I'm going to speak to, I'm going to speak to an authentic power. So I'm going to start with an authentic power. Because I think I've already described the inauthentic power, the incongruent power, the autocratic, controlling, manipulative power for the sake of selfishness, for the sake of being self-absorbed, for the sake of meeting one's needs and only meeting one's needs, not being empathetic, not being compassionate, not being considerate, not being attuned, not being attentive, and coming from a place of deep fear. So I think and feel that we have addressed what it means to come from autocratic power, which is a complete imbalance of how we need to be in relationship when we're not considering the others and we're not considering ourselves. That's not healthy either. So authentic power is really just coming from a place of being self. Authentic power is really just coming from a place of, this is who I am, and I'm expressing this in the most gentle way possible, but I'm also coming from a place of power. Yeah, I'm also coming from a place of truth, authenticity, congruency, transparency, honesty, openness, presence. And I'm not expressing my power, I'm not expressing my authentic truth to belittle you. That is not my intention. My intention is to empower you and to empower myself, so that when you receive this authentic, real, open version of me, you are then able to make decisions based on that authentic truth. Now, for so much of my life, I was not that person. I would present a particular way, and in the shadows, I was completely someone else. I was never giving a person the opportunity to be truly who they could be and who they wanted to be. Did they really want to choose me in friendship, in relationship? because I was presenting a inauthentic, imbalanced version of self, an incongruent version of self. And I learned that the hard way. And the people that I was with learned that the hard way. Hard being defined by painful and challenging and difficult. Immense pain, immense frustration, immense feelings of betrayal and dishonesty, disharmony, disconnection, distortion in communication. And that, let me tell you from direct experience and from the many, many people that I've worked with, that is not the power you wish to express in relationship. You want to come from a place of, this is me, I believe in me, I have this level of self-love, I have this level of connection to self, I have this level of understanding self, feeling self, being with self. And I wish to just present that very authentic version here. And I love myself so much in an endearing way, in a non-egoic way. I care for myself so much. I rate myself. I have a high level of self-worth that I can be who I need to be, that I can be authentically me. I can be me in every way possible. And whether you accept that or not, what I'm doing is giving you every opportunity to be you, and every opportunity to say, yes, I love you. Yes, I care for you. Yes, you resonate with me. Yes, who you are resonates with me. Let's move down this particular journey. Let's be in this particular space. How powerful does that become? Feel into that for a moment. Feel into that truly, deeply authentic posturing, that authentic self. Like, feel into, be with that. How does that allow you to be in relationship, not only with others, but to self? It's profound. Yeah, it's deeply profound, and it's fucking real. Give me number 4 in the comment box if you can resonate with that, the realness of that. And again, from direct experience and from being with so many, working with so many people, I have been able to see that. I've been able to observe it, to see it here, and to see it here, and to see it here. And it is debilitating. It debilitates our ability to connect profoundly, openly, honestly. It is so painful for people to experience this inauthentic version of self. And it's painful for people to experience a version of self that, or a version of the other, that is completely out of alignment. And let's define authenticity again, because again, those of you that have been on my live feeds for some time, I've expressed my definition of authenticity, and it's really simple. It's a mirroring that takes place between the internal and the external world in its most simplest explanation. And what that means is everything that we feel, we hear within, we sense, we think, we believe, our models of reality, they are expressed in the most accurate manner possible through our behaviors, our interactions, and the way we communicate with the outside world, the way we hold ourselves, and our posturing, of course. This becomes beautiful. This becomes beautiful because there's a realness there. There's an honoring of self there. Now, when two fearful people come together in relationship, when two, oh, by the way, and if you resonate with that, that definition of authenticity, because of course there are and this isn't about the Oxford Dictionary definition of authenticity. This is about how do we show up authentically in relationship, and what does that mean? Relationship to self and relationship to others as well. Always bring relationship back to self, beautiful people. Always do that. Always bring relationship back to self. It's so deeply important, yeah? So if you can resonate with that definition of authenticity, and if you can resonate with life being made so much more simple if we actually chose to relate that way to each other in authenticity, please give me number 5 in the comment box. And I want to address some of the comments that are occurring now as well. Some of the comments are really profound, deeply profound and open and honest, and I admire you and honor you for that. I honor you very deeply for being truthful and speaking your truth. And as ugly as it may be, beauty is not known without the ugly side of relating. Beauty is not known without the ugly side of life per se. And that's the dualistic world and realm that we live in, yeah? So honoring your sharing, honoring what you're expressing right now, because as we express and we verbalize, we are gaining a varied perspective on our own inner self, and that becomes deeply empowering for our own being as well. So thank you. I always say I feel like we're teaching, we're learning, we're teaching. I feel that here I am learning so much from so many of you, and I honour that, and I'm deeply blessed for that, and I'm in deep gratitude as well. So when two people that, sorry about my tangent, when two people come together and they are like this, clashing hard in terms of trying to gain power, it becomes debilitating for the relationship. Now, what I want to do as well, of course, is put this put this on you and have you feeling into and thinking into what happens when two people come together in relationship. And you can apply this to yourself as well. So if you're coming together with yourself and there's a dissonance, you're trying to gain power in certain areas of your life, but you're doing it from a place of fear as opposed to a model of reality that comes from abundance and love and health and connection, vitality, and all of that accompanies what it means to maintain a healthy posture in life. But generally, when you are in relationship and you're coming from, both people are coming from fear, what is the outcome of that? Besides the obvious, which is, of course, a potential coming apart. But what is the outcome of what that looks like with respect to how then that dynamic unfolds and how that dynamic plays out? And whilst you're conjuring up memories, or perhaps just feeling into and thinking deeply into this, I'm going to go into a little bit about what that looks like, yeah? Because there's a complete dishonoring of self and there's a complete dishonoring of the other. And what happens is it becomes nasty because we're coming from a place of self-preservation. Self-preservation is so fucking powerful. It is so, it literally takes a stronghold on our lives. It takes a stronghold on how we choose to behave and interact with others. And it really damages our relationships. It damages our long-term relationships. It damages our short-term relationships. It damages the love that can actually be expressed in relationship. Mark, okay, you're on. You've made it. Internet in North Beach is up and running. Brother, can I, are you in North Beach? Can I bring you onto this? I'd love to bring you onto this. Mark, let me know how I do that. How do I do that? Let me see if I can bring Mark. Firstly, let me know, Mark, if I can bring you on, and then if it's good for you, if you've got a strong enough internet connection, and then if you can, cool. If not, no problem. Yeah. So we begin to again look into what's going on with respect to this clashing. What's going on with respect to these power plays that are coming deep from fear? Yeah, deeply, deeply coming from fear. Well, what happens is we destroy. Fear is destructive on so many, many different levels. Fear destroys our ability to see truth. Fear destroys our ability to gain varied and broad perspective and deep perspective in life. Fear is very myopic, is very narrow-minded, deeply myopic. Fear is deeply, deeply myopic. And it is so because it can only concentrate its dense energy on that, on what it is fearful of. And the ego loves familiarity, remember that. So the ego thrives on familiarity. The ego thrives on familiarity. It thrives on comfort. It thrives on safety. And will often revert back to what we know, what is familiar, even if it's unconscious per se, but the feeling that it gives. We cannot make the connection to why we are feeling this way. But effectively what will happen is that we will move into a place of behaving in a way that is completely familiar to us, irrespective of whether that behavior is healthy or not. And generally, then we condition ourselves to cultivating these maladaptive, habitual coping strategies. Now, from a biological perspective, through familiar circumstances, we are experiencing perhaps dopamine hit. Because there's familiarity there, there's safety there, we're experiencing the serotonin to some level and becomes addictive biologically as well. So these situations that we experience, that we feel, deeply challenge us And they challenge us in such a way that we know something's quite not right, but we have to behave in that way. So just give me a moment. I'm going to invite Mark on this live feed. There's definitely a reason why I've invited Mark. Actually, I'm not sure if I can. I've tried to invite him. I'm not sure. I've tried to invite you, Mark. I'm not sure if that's going to work, bro. I don't know if I can invite you halfway through. Apologies if I can't. I'm gonna keep going. Maybe you can send a request through. Maybe it's possible on your end, and it might come up on my feed. But I'm gonna keep moving through with this. Yeah. So when two people come together, both in their unconscious fears, not understanding where they're coming from, not really being able to connect to their own true authentic selves, at the beginning, if there's a deep attraction there, even if it's physiological, if it's physical, if it's sexual, if it's even if it's emotional and so forth, at the beginning, as that cocktail of neurochemicals is released in our bloodstreams, in our bodies, and we are experiencing that connection with another person, it's okay. The baggage is not checked. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Yeah, it's totally, completely irrelevant. But once that phase begins to wane, and it always does, and there's nothing wrong, it's not a good thing or a bad thing, it's just part of the connection process. It's part of the stages of love and connecting and relating to each other in a very specific way. Those fears pop up. Those fears merge. They emerge from the depths. Because so many of us are not familiar with our darkness. So many of us are not familiar with our shadow self. So many of us are not connected to our truth, to our authentic nature. So many of us do not understand how we actually function internally, what our coping strategies are for challenge, for pain, for experiencing fear, for experiencing disconnection and disharmony. And most of those patterns of behavior, those coping strategies, are maladaptive. They're conditioned into us. We observe them from a very young age during our formative years. And most of them, not for all of us, of course, it's a generalization, but a fairly robust generalization, is that these maladaptive coping strategies allow us to move through life coming from fear, coming from restriction, coming from constriction. They don't really give us the tools to connect in an empathetic, compassionate, open, transparent, beautiful manner, yeah? And that becomes really interesting. Now, it becomes interesting because what generally occurs is that we then are playing in these relationships, in our intimate relationships, and even in our close friendships, we are playing the roles of what we believe to be a healthy relationship, which generally is not. And it really sets our progress and our growth and our evolution of self back. We're not really learning, we're not really addressing any of the deep issues that we must address in order to grow and expand our own consciousness. And rather what's happening is we're just repeating the same experiences, the same debilitating, destructive experiences that we have repeated for so long. So what generally happens is in order to feel safe, we must feel in control. And in order to feel in control, we must express power. And when that expression comes from an inauthentic place, from a place of wanting to control because we're so scared, guess what happens? We lose that bond with people. We behave in a way that could be abusive, that could be attacking, that could be defensive. Flight, fight, freeze. That's the space that we're coming from when we're talking to autocratic, inauthentic, controlling, manipulative power. It's sometimes, yes, we have a pathology. Some people are sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissistic. There are areas of their physical brain that does not function, that does not fire in a particular way. They have been severely traumatized, abused as young people. It has remained with them for all of their life, etc., etc., etc. And this is a very real possibility. For many of us, it's not so much that. It's that we haven't learned to deal with our dark stuff, with our shadow stuff, with our pain points. We haven't learned to deal and relieve ourselves of our deep emotional childhood pains for the most part, or even pains or experiences that we've had in the past. And that could be as an adult, it could be as a young adult, it could be as an older adult. That's not too relevant either. It's just in that formative period of growing, of being present to life. We are in a hypnagogic state where we are not completely, but we're deeply unconscious. We're at a particular brain, we're more like an alpha brainwave state where we're just absorbing everything that's coming into our environment. And if we're exposed to danger or ignorance or, again, violence or aberrant behavior or emotional manipulation, we take that on as being the norm. We take that on as being, hey, this is what life is about, when that's not what life is about. And that's not what we necessarily need in life, yeah? So we begin then to view life from a very polarized perspective, a polarized vantage point. And when we're in polarization, we're not in wholeness. And if we're not in wholeness, we're not expressing the true nature of who we are. We're not expressing the wonder of who we are, yeah? So that becomes, again, dangerous with respect to cultivating health in our relationships. The danger is that you're not going to cultivate health and openness and transparency and these beautiful attributes and character traits really define what a healthy relationship is. And of course, there's more than just that. So in order to create harmony for ourselves, effectively what I'm saying is there needs to be a deeper level of self-awareness. In order to create harmony for ourselves in relationship and for the other in relationship, that, let me be very clear, we cannot be responsible for others in relationship. And if you can agree with that, place number 6 in the comment box. That's really important because so many of us, again, because of what we've been exposed to, what we value, our voids determine our values, what we've either also observed very clearly in our primary care. Perhaps some of us want to heal everybody or be a martyr or help everybody or try and fix everything. Again, comes down to that control, becomes very, very becomes almost impossible. Well, it is almost impossible. We cannot fix others and we cannot be responsible for others' growth. They must be responsible. All of us must be responsible for our own growth. We can be of service to others. We can be of assistance to others. We can hold space for others. Well, holding space is being present. Holding space is being honest. Holding space is being empathetic and compassionate. Holding space is being understanding. Holding space is being authentic, truthful, open, honest. We can be that for other people, but people must assume responsibility for their own growth. So to harmonize a relationship, we must know ourselves. We must be self-aware. We must be moved towards self-realization, towards being deeply connected to our own being. This is very, very important, so important in our lives. If you're just coming on, people, place number 1 in the comment box so that I know that you're here. And if you're new to the live feeds, place new in the comment box so the wonderful tribe and community can welcome you, of course. So another way, or another path to take to harmonize our relationships and to reduce, to minimize, to even eliminate, ideally, that inauthentic, yucky, very yucky, autocratic, controlling power play is to be with self, is to be connected to self, is to observe our own pain points, is to observe our own fears, is to do the delving into the shadow work, into the shadow self, into the what we don't know about who we are. And of course, there is so much there. It's not a process that takes a half an hour or a minute or a few days or even a few months. It's potentially a lifetime, potentially years, because we are constantly in an ever-evolving state. We are constantly in flux. And it's in that flux that we learn more about who we are, but we must be attentive to that. We must move with a particular intention in life. And this becomes deeply profound and beautiful for our own growth. And of course, for the people that we attract into our lives, for the people that we choose to bring into our lives. And by choosing to observe all that we are and all that we've been, we are openly choosing, and here's the power in all this, we are openly choosing to love ourselves. We are openly choosing to be with ourselves. We are openly choosing to say to ourselves, I value who I am. I value my self-worth. I have high self-worth, enough to go deep within myself so I can bring into and draw into my life the relationships that I want. And of course, the relationships that we want need to first we must address the relationship within self. Is filling those voids within self first with self. And we begin to release fear by knowing as a starting point that there is an alternative. There is an alternative to the way we are choosing to behave. There is an alternative to the fear that we are experiencing. There is an alternative to saying, hey, I can be another person. I can behave in a different way. I can be and I can do in such a way that doesn't stem from fear. To believe that, to know that, to then take ownership of that, to observe that, to feel that, to take a leap of faith at times, to be courageous enough to step into the unknown and to step into pain becomes challenging for us. So we're looking at creating a space of reverence and respect for the relationship and for others, but by first creating or cultivating reverence and respect for self and our own journey. And to do that, and here's the key, we cannot polarize ourselves. We cannot polarize our hearts. We cannot just pick and choose what we wish to be conscious in our lives, what we wish to remember, what we wish to be a part of, what we wish to be connected to. It doesn't work like that. We must engage in a whole praxis of self. That means embracing, embodying the fullness of who we are. Everything. All that yucky stuff that we don't like. All the pain that we cannot connect to because it hurts too much, because it's too fearful, because if we go into that pain and into that fear, we may lose ourselves. And the reality is we won't. We won't lose ourselves. But it's overwhelming because it's so unfamiliar. And of course there's layers and layers and layers to this. And it's a journey, beautiful people. It does not just begin with a thought and end with that thought. Action must be taken. Exploration of self must take place. There are physiological practices that we can engage in to begin to soften the trauma that we've often felt in past experiences, in past relationships, in past relating. And in order for us to be that person that we wish to be in relationship, to honor, admire, to revere the other, to be present to the other, but to also be present to ourselves, we must observe everything that we have been and everything that we are. And what makes us, us. By paying that deep attention to self, by choosing to move through life in a very particular way, in a way that enhances our presence and our being, that gives us gnosis around who we are, knowledge, wisdom around who we are, and around who we wish to be. And if you can resonate with that, place a number 7 in the comment box, please. Because what we're really getting to here is we're getting to a place where we have an opportunity to understand ourselves, to relate to ourselves, to know thyself, and to know thyself with great depth and love and connection. And when we come from that place, when we come from that place of choosing to love self, we are telling the people in our lives, our friendships, our partners, our loved ones, strangers, that I love myself enough to be present to you. I love myself enough to show up fully in the space that I'm in and who I truly am. That becomes deeply empowering for the other person and for yourself. So imagine that for a moment, like just sit with that for a little bit, yeah? Is sit with that love for self, and the confidence that comes from that, the confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to speak to that person. I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm going to explore another country. I'm going to cut this negative behavior out of my life. I'm going to be present to this situation. Because you have the confidence to do so because you know yourself, because you've explored the chasms of self. You've gone into great depths around identifying what are your strengths, what are your current weaknesses, where are your deficits in life, or what can you improve on, how can you evolve, how can we grow? You've taken the effort, you've gone to the effort to do that. Relationships can be magnificent catalysts for growth, but intrinsically and intimately, they can lead us to the most profound aspects of self. A relationship grabs a torch and goes, hey, there's a dark spot there. I can see that. And really, relationships are mirrors. So whenever you're relating to someone, they are a mirror for you. And there's a torch that shines. And they say, hey, there's a dark spot there. Have you thought to look at that? And that's not the actual conscious conversation that takes place, yeah? But effectively, that's what that person symbolizes. Jada says, one needs a guide to take a walk with them into the shadows. The guide is someone who can see in the dark and is not blinded by the darkness, but rather illuminates the darkness for the one who cannot see. Jada, perfect. Beautiful. Number 8 for that comment, please. Because that is powerful and has articulated in another way what I've just said about that torch, yeah? And it's a process. I said this earlier about 20 minutes ago. It's a journey, often a lifetime journey. And it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing that it's a lifetime journey. It takes years. It takes patience. It requires practice, perseverance. It requires courage. It requires breaking through fear paradigms. It requires us connecting to the fullness of who we are, encompassing a whole version of self as opposed to a fragmented, fractured version of self. It's not easy work, okay, but it's rewarding work. It's not work. It's not easy exploration, but it is deeply rewarding and magical exploration. And in that space, we have an opportunity to change, transmute, transform the way we have always behaved. And the way we have always behaved, in this instance, if we are, be careful of the word that I use, I don't want to use the word failing, yeah? But if we're constantly encountering disharmony or disconnection, disparity, dissonance, difficulty, lots of D's there, in our relationships, we're constantly met with tension. It's telling us something. It is symbolizing and indicating something very deep and profound to us with respect to the way we are choosing to be and behave in relationship, and with respect to how we are choosing to show up in relationship, how we are treating others. Because if that relationship or relationships continue to break down, there are reasons why. And it's not about allocating blame or fault. Let me be really clear about that. It's just an opportunity. Difficulty, challenge, pain, even happiness, joy, and bliss is an opportunity for us to look deep within ourselves, deep within who we have been. And we ask the question. Here's the question that we ask. This is the simplicity of the question. Is who I'm being right now and who I have been in my past, is it serving me? And is it serving love? And what would love do now? That's it. That's the simplicity of it. That is it. And if the answer is no, I'm not being served by these beliefs, these behaviors, these strategies that I'm implementing, these expectations, these rigid expectations that I have in myself, on relationship and on others, then it's time to let that shit go. It's time to release. But we can only release through awareness. We must have awareness first. We must be competent to what we are observing and what we are feeling. We must be open to feeling that. We must be present to feeling that. So creating harmony begins with creating harmony within self. Creating harmony in a relationship begins with a yearning to be present in a selfish, selfless manner for self and for others in relationship. Again, any relationship, intimate relationship, erotic relationship, philia-based relationship, familial relationship, colleagues, etc., etc. Relationship to things, material things, whatever it may be. We have to be present to ourselves. We have to yearn to know ourselves, and we must yearn to wish to transmute behaviors that no longer serve us. And that's how we create love in relationships. We must also wish to love self, to know self, to connect to self, to be present to self, to wish to engage with self, to choose to tread a path that at times may be deeply challenging, to tread a path that may be confronting. But relationships can help us through that as well. People in our lives that mean something to us, that are significant to us, because we all, one of the core human needs is significance. We wish to feel significant, but we first must feel significant within ourselves. And we do that by gaining a whole perspective of who we are. That means embracing that yucky stuff, the shadow stuff, the pain, the challenge, the difficulty that we have faced in life, the fears that we have, owning those fears, making the unknown known. This becomes deeply empowering for all of us, for all the people in our lives and for ourselves. We have a capacity to be that person. We have a capacity to connect in a loving way. And in my life, for so much of my life, I've been so disconnected from myself that I have disconnected from my loved ones and have not allowed them to be graceful in their own movement, and have not allowed them to be autonomous in the choices they've made. And there is, of course, remorse in that. Not of course, actually. It's varied on the individual. But for me, personally, it's caused so much damage in my relationships and in my understanding and connection to self that the only choice that I've given myself is to break through and grow. And to go through, we must traverse everything that we've been. We must make the unfamiliar familiar. And we must face our demons, so to speak. We must face our pain. We must face our fears. And in doing so, we are really liberating others as well. It's that notion of selfish selflessness that comes back into play. And we're liberating others, and we're liberating ourselves from the shackles of maladaptive coping strategies that control us, belief systems, models of reality that have been entrenched within us for whatever reason or reasons that we do not take ownership of. But when we take ownership of them, we can say, do these belief systems serve me? Do these models of reality in the way I'm moving through the world, do they serve me? Are they here for me? Am I present to them? Am I really, really in alignment with these belief systems and how they controlling my behavior and, of course, therefore the outcome of my relationships and the outcome of how I choose to treat self? It's a beautiful comment, so thank you. Very endearing, very honoured, humbled. But when we ask these questions, and it begins with self-inquiry, beautiful people, it's a very valid point, Vanessa. It begins with self-inquiry. And when we have self-inquiry, we partake in a process and a journey of self-inquiry. We are ultimately liberating ourselves from the shackles of what no longer serves us. And we cease to play a small game in life. We cease to be autocratic, controlling, fear-based in our relationships, and wanting to be powerful in a negative, demeaning manner. You know, we can speak to narcissism here, and I've done videos on this before. We can speak to gaslighting, and we can speak to so many other psycho-emotional issues that go hand in hand with coming from a deep place of fear or fears or multiple fears. And if we choose to look at them and we choose to release them, we choose to make different choices. We increase our capacity to make different choices in life. Instead of bonding with people that cause us pain, disconnection, disharmony, such as conditioned trauma bonding, we essentially become people that come from a place of confidence, connection, and love. This changes the dynamics that we engage with people, and it transmutes deeply our relationships, and allows our relationships to be healthy, to flourish, allows our relationships to come from a place of deepened love and intimacy. Intimacy, so beautiful and so powerful, authentic, congruent, open intimacy. We can spend more time, experiential time, focusing on what's important to us, focusing on what we value the most. So knowing what our highest values are, what our purpose or purposes for being here is. This is important. So knowing this, so knowing who we are. Matthew, it's good to have you here, brother. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure having you here, my man. Knowing this with everything that we are in such openness and completeness, this allows us to be very different versions of self. In fact, versions of self that embrace life, embody wonder or wonderment, embody truth, embody realization, embody authentic power. Power that uplifts, chooses to uplift other people, chooses fully to uplift other people, and chooses to uplift ourselves, not demean other people, suppress other people, and raise our own selves. This is inauthentic. This is not sustainable. This is so far from sustainable, yeah? So far from sustainable. Jada, that's beautifully said. Self-exploration, diligent, I like to add diligent, intentional self-exploration is a deep act of self-intimacy and self-love and self-worth. It demonstrates to yourself that you care about yourself enough to fucking explore everything that you are. Number 9 in the comment box if you can resonate with that, because that is powerful. Jolene, glad to have you back. That is powerful. How do we become that? Self-inquiry. How do we become that? Curiosity. Infinite curiosity. That's powerful. And it's in that power that we discover ourselves and our ability to give. Remember, it is biologically innate within us to give lovingly, to give openly, to give selflessly. I'm not speaking to altruism, I'm just speaking to giving. It's biologically ingrained within us. And when we begin to minimize these maladaptive coping strategies, these emotional coping strategies that are not healthy, that are not really open to who we are, we change. We change deeply. We change the fundamental structure, our own internal biology, our behaviors, our emotional coping strategies, our spirituality, our outlook on life. The way we choose to interact with people transmutes tremendously. Self-exploration is key. I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going to leave you there, lovely people. I am going to say, if you're in Perth next Wednesday evening, the 27th, if you are here in Perth, Western Australia, Wednesday the 27th, my beautiful friend Mark and I are running a workshop on conscious relating, conscious relationships. It's going to be an epic workshop. It's in. I'll put the link in the comments, and I'll put the link in the title page as well. And it's going to be an epic immersion into relating to self and relating to others in the most healthiest of ways possible. Yeah. So if you're there, please come and attend that. You'll get a lot out of it. And if you have a partner, come with your partner. There'll be much hands-on practice as well. And of course, a lot of information being imparted as well. Going to be a very interactive workshop. I look forward to having you there. So thank you so much, beautiful people. Yes, Emma, the answer is yes. So we're running these on a regular basis, very much so, yeah. So share this video, please, if you resonate with it. Please share this video if you have gained something from this. Please share this video with your loved ones, with someone you feel may be able to use the information, the wisdom imparted in this video from all of us, especially from you, so much from you. Thank you for your interaction, your commentary, etc. Thank you for being here, for being present, for taking the time out of your day, your evening, wherever you may be in the world, to be here and just be present and share your wisdom. Thank you so much. Please share, but of course, again, hopefully I'll see you next Wednesday if you're in Perth and you're around. Many blessings to you, beautiful people. Once again, thank you from my heart and such deep gratitude. Shall see you again very soon.